Oh, what? No, not for birthday. Better. Yeah, but then not like that. Yeah, not a straight line. Yeah. Like this. Emotional. Okay, Siri, I can see your hand. Rude. Eavesdropping. Always. Emotionally exhausted.
I really appreciate that. This guy named John, over Stover, EV at Jackson, he was like, he was out there.
Maybe nice.
I'm
out of the When I started to get brain cell
I'm
back,
city
that
board member.
made a difference.
Yeah. Zip ties, can I appreciate one a zip tie person, to kind of look at it and go wider and narrow.
Still on there, and I thought, are they able to stay?
They just cut off, yeah.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Now we're only gonna get, we started on this, it'll go like to hop on. Crosswalk. We'll do is look at some side and downside and full, but it's you designed either way, it's taking case of wrong. Okay, it's not six cents or whatever.
Oh, they were all talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're looking for a good thing to see.
Yeah.
They were all talking about it, but there's on the fence. Very cool, very cool. Welcome and thank you. My apologies for not being with you the last time. I made it through all the COVID years without getting it. Wow. And then just got slammed. So I missed the last day of school for the first time ever. I just couldn't do it. So, I was one of those, as the commercial said, if it's COVID, Paxlovid, and where we went. So I threw all my days of quarantine and testing negative and all sorts of things like that. So, thank you. You wouldn't have wanted me here. When we met last. So, here we are. We'll look at the agenda, see if there's any changes, and then go ahead and proceed. Finalizing our agenda, we had some state and national legislative things just to touch on because we have in the past. I included Article 29, which somehow in teacher prep, we added. There's 2 bullets in the current language in the agreement, and we added a third and said, let's just take this out of here. Because it's really not relevant, and so if we can approve it in a tentative agreement as it currently exists. That was the reason, that was one that we just kind of blew by and missed. Some article responses, we have our group on this side who have said, thank you very much, but we're really not interested in meeting in July. Made the assumption that that might be the same, but we're open for conversation. But then being able to take a look at, when we want to continue going.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else we need? All right. Before we get into the state and national stuff, 2 times ago when I was here, I need to apologize for breaking one of my own ground rules. And that ground rule of mine was to say, we don't invite individual or specific situations and circumstances into our bargaining conversation to allow an individual story that can possibly identify a student or a family to be interjected in the process. I broke my rule. And so for that, I wanted to say, I'm sorry. I will do better. So, just needed to put that out there. State school fund budget, and Jennifer, I may call on you because you know more than I do. It has passed at the 11.36 billion, so if it's not already, it's headed to the governor's desk for signature, so it's made it through, all its hurdles at this point. We still do not have final information about the student investment account or the high school success, which is also measure 98. We don't have final accounting or approval of those 2 budgets, or at least we didn't last I looked at them. To be able to see if those would be maintained at a current level or if they would be reduced or what, just don't know. All that being said, education actually in the eyes of the legislative assembly, when you look at all of that, really made out rather well. In terms of other entities and situations that are losing big. Preschool is losing big. Housing is doing some loss. There's some money that's been shifted to cover long-term care and treatment, which is kind of a setup. But it's been pulled out of other places to be able to make it happen. And so, of all the places where we could be, we actually took, meaning K-12, less hits and kind of got a better outcome than a lot of other folks in the legislative assembly. So for that, we're grateful. We did hear about the local option equalization finally, and we came out a little bit ahead of what we thought we would. I think we said that last year it was around $500,000 that was budgeted. 600, and we budgeted.
I bet you did
About the same this year, and we're gonna be there, so we know that did come through. And it is not considerably less or nothing, so that was good. We still don't know about our Every Student Succeeds Act federal programs, which doesn't influence directly what we do in our bargaining. What it does influence is any staffing or any things that we have put directly into those funds that might have to be shifted if we don't have them. We are not like some of the larger districts that can get up to $1 million in Title I funding. We get right around 200,000. Right now in the Title I, which we know we will get for 25-26, that as Title I really takes into account some of our RTII positions. Homeless and a little bit of materials that are a part of that. In our Title II, which is a professional learning, and the Title IV, which is kind of like an innovative programs. In a way, we're fortunate that we don't get tons of money in that. What the Title II means is it pulls out a lot of our tuition reimbursement payment and some things like that, that we would just have to look other places to be able to make sure that we could take care of that business. So Title I we know of, the other titles we have no clue, nobody's saying a word at this point. So, anything else that you can think of on that?
We do have Title IV, that,
Okay, Title IV did come in, okay,
oh, no, we don't, I don't do. Okay, we did get our, updated state school fund estimate, and it's within $30,000 of what we budgeted at, so we're right on target there.
and we also know that, Title I think it's part B, which is migrant education, is gone. We don't have any migrant families in our district at this point in time, and haven't for quite a while, it's not established. Over a longer period of time, and so, we're not taking a huge hit on that. We partner with, Lane ESD for Title III, which is English Language Development. And in that consortium, we don't get money directly, but there's a lot of access that LitQuai has to professional learning and some of the activities that happen as a group across the consortium. That is also gone. But it's not a direct hit financially, in that regard to us. I have some hope that that group will continue to get together of its own accord, just because of some of the things that they do together, but that kind of remains to be seen, so. That's what we know of that state. So, if we look at Article 29. Where are we? Where are we with that? Are we good, bad, indifferent?
Well, I think that we TA'd it to, I think at the time, you had language in there that basically said, but that did not have function.
Oh, that's a different article. I can't even remember what I had in here. There was something in here. Maybe it was.
We signed the tentative agreement on Article 29 in section C there that you had proposed.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And
didn't.
we
I
did-
couldn't
we
find the
did
signed
accept.
copy. So,
And
okay,
And we,
right.
you know, we viewed that language as being, you know, redundant. I mean, that's already what it is, but it was helpful to clarify it. We were okay, and that's why we signed it.
Okay,
Or we can sign another one if we need one signed, I'm fine. So,
okay, well, I'll get that, if we want that other section C in there, then,
it wasn't our proposed language. so-
it was, and, I mean, it was, I know it was ours.
Oh, okay.
And we were okay being able to say, we'll get rid of it and just keep it as it is. But I didn't realize that I couldn't find the copy that we signed.
I think we signed off of the proposal that we brought. You know, we were going back and forth on saying that. We brought that back.
My bad. Okay. I'm sorry that responses got put into groups instead of packets. So there's just gonna be a moment of handout frames of this. Okay. I think we'll just hand them all out. And then we can start running through them. And the other way. And then I would take one. Here's another one.
Right.
Did you get one?
That time, that, oh. Oh, that's when you're.
I was trying to sign up. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. There and here, I sent them both ways. Well, some of these don't have a lot of changes in them, but we wanted to kind of bring back the whole setup. So we'll start with Article 12. And, if you look at C, school workday, we had put in quite some time ago, the district and association recognize that education involves occasional professional obligations outside the school day. If you look at the next page or the reverse of that one, we left in the apart from providing required preparation period lunch and break time may be utilized for student contact, school or district meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Outdoor school. We agreed to take out the number 3 on C. Employees may be required to participate in no more than 3 unpaid evening activities. Assuming that number 1 kind of addresses that in this way. So we conceded that one and are taking that off the table. The outdoor school language doesn't change. In the special education case managers. We left in the district acknowledges, all parties will work together as reasonably able to address any concerns. Then the notice of IEP meetings. And then we kept out the piece that says the school district shall provide at least 2 working days notice. And after talking to Kelsey made the shift, because the other piece of the puzzle is whoever does the scheduling, in this case, it's one person. They need to know case manager schedules enough in advance to be able to make sure that they can do some things. And so our counter was to say, when given at least 60 days advance notice by special education case manager of schedule availability, the student services office will provide at least 2 work days notice prior to a scheduled IEP meeting to the degree legally allowable. So in those cases where somebody's got to come in and we need to do it faster than that, then we will. This ensures that special education case managers have adequate time to review all relevant documents, prepare for the meeting, and ensure effective participation. And then if needing to reschedule a meeting, special education case manager must notify the student services office of schedule availability at least 10 days in advance of the needed change. It's trying to coordinate those two pieces together to be able to make that work. The response piece that we put in there before, that I just left as not an article, but a response, is that sometimes we have to meet compliance requirements that can't give us 2 days. Although the desire is to try. And, the IDE, there's IDEA, language, that IEP meetings take place at mutually agreed upon times for both district and parent. So, and then there's a little bit more that's not changed since the last time. But it was if added to the collective bargaining agreement, we could elicit a grievance and an IDEA violation at the same time. The student services manual update, the 2 working days, we can't always be committed to it, and I know that one of Kelsey's things in the that first day in August is really gonna be spending time being able to look at schedules and be able to come up with kind of some, how do we start the year and what's our scheduling look like to make sure that we can take care of business in that way. No more than 1 IEP per day, that doesn't support IEPs for siblings. Or a need to meet appropriate timelines or a case manager preference. If they say, I want 2 to happen in a day, or I've got these 3 and I want to just knock them out and make them happen. And our sheer numbers of IEPs. So we want to work on it. It's just what's the back and forth. So that was, well, team. Um, One of the things that I had heard was the last time we got together, the issue that was had with, instead of the building principal, the use of the word administration. In terms of finalized procedures are determined by administration. Our proposal maintains that we leave it administration because that leaves that to allow Kelsey as an administrator to be able to weigh in on procedures. It gives me the opportunity as superintendent to weigh in on procedures. Some of our assistant principals are pretty intimately involved in discipline within the schools. It so allows them the opportunity to be able to be connected. So we opted to leave that in both A and B as administration instead of the principal. The C, the written student discipline procedures require that incidents are documented in the student information system with follow-up communication to reporting licensed employee. We are still looking into, my understanding is that anyone who has access to that particular student in the student information system should be able to see student discipline. And right now that doesn't exist. Okay. Student handbook will be posted on the district website, which by the way, they are. Any updates will be shared with licensed staff. We kept out that any changes to behavior policies will be communicated to staff prior to changes being shared with students and families. You're gonna see it first, you know, in terms of the times going back with, when you come back in August to be able to see this kind of information, you're gonna be the ones to see it first. I've been debating, I'm not gonna go into a particular example. F, licensed employees will be notified of students entering their class or currently enrolled in their class with individualized discipline or behavioral plans. Licensed employees will be given training and practice in the use of any physical intervention techniques that are identified in the behavior discipline plan, and temporary support will be provided until training can occur. And just the notation that we can't keep students out of a general education setting in all instances. And then the reverse side of that is just we said the district will adhere to guidelines within current ORSs and just took out, the specifics in that. So that's 13.
So can I ask a couple just
Yep.
follow-up questions?
Yep.
So a couple regarding the removing of the building principal. And this is just I guess I only understand how the high school works, and so, from what I understand, any kind of processes or procedures, I'm assuming that administrators do talk to their vice principals and discuss and have, at their weekly meetings, and then if there's anything beyond that, they would bring in Kelsey or you to have that input. So I guess I don't understand the need to remove the building principal as that person of point of contact in the building. They are our building leaders. They are the people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. They are the ones that set the precedents for our schools. So I guess on my side, I'm thinking they are already in communication with their vice principals. They're in communication with Kelsey if needed. They're in communication with you if needed. So why take them out of that loop and say it's only administration, I guess?
And we met this morning as administrators and talked about, our handbooks and things like that, and, when it says finalized procedures are shared by the building principal, we can go with that. But the notion of finalized procedures are determined by administration. There are some things that we talked about, especially in our meeting this morning, that said we have to be a united front across all of that. And so it's the difference between finalized procedures are determined by versus shared by. That there are some instances in particular where we've got to be a united front across the district.
And I get that, but I guess we have a building principal for that purpose, is to lead that school, individual school. We don't have it, I don't have every principal leading every building, so the shared thing of like, I understand that maybe, Mark might contact Steve and ask questions and everything about that, but ultimately Mark's in charge of that building, ultimately Steve's in charge of that building. So, and they know what's best for that area, they give input, but I guess as a staff, that's who we're putting our faith and trust in, is those principals that are leading our school.
Yeah, and our thought was we didn't want to limit. Because a school principal could make the decision and could be the administrator that talks about finalized procedures or how they're determined. But we don't want to lock ourselves into, well, you're not the school principal, so.
It just seems like it's undermining their authority in the building when it's just saying the administrator. And I guess that's fine, that's just my question on it. The other question I had was, on the student handbook would be posted on the district website, any updates we could share with licensed staff. The biggest concern I have with that is, and we all know that the student handbook, it gets updated, typically towards, the end of the year, because it needs to get printed for the
Yep.
following year. But there are occasions that information has changed. Example, this last year where information was changed. And the staff was not notified by administration that there was a change.
Yeah, and that was our intent of meetings when we met this morning, was being able to say, we've got to get these things out and get them published. And then our first course of action is to be able to share them with staff.
It just seems strange to me that anytime we ask for communication back to staff, it gets struck out. Anytime we ask for, hey, could you let us know first? Could we be a part of that communication process? Every single time it gets struck out, and I don't understand the benefit to our students, our staff, our parents, that teachers are not included in that. So I don't know why that would hurt anybody other than showing communication between admin and teachers is a good thing. And that we are still part of, like, once you know, we know. So why would it always be struck out when it comes to communicating to us?
Not that we don't want the input, but there are some times that that doesn't happen. In a summertime, for instance, you know, it's the business about communicating to staff prior to changes being shared with students and families. Yeah, that we could look at. When we talk about the other one, the wrap back communication to a reporting teacher, homeroom teacher, it was really about, we're gonna follow up and communicate with the reporting licensed employee and make sure people have access to it and need to see it. It's not that we don't want the input from staff and how those things are done. It's just, what does it lock us in?
Well, that's unfortunate that you feel like communicating to us is locking you into something. We want to team up with you. We want to be a part of the administration of like communication, feeling like we are knowing we're all on the same page for staff, for students, for parents. But it seems like anytime we ask for that, like you can literally look at this document, communication back to staff strike, communication back to staff strike. It's just like, why would that be beneficial to keep us out of the loop? And for example, this last year where we had to read in the paper that the cell phone policy had changed. Again, why is it something that you feel it's locking you in when it's like, it actually supports your decision when you make your team, makes a decision. And you notify us, then we feel like, okay, somebody asks us about something, yes, this is what the district is doing, this is why they're doing it, this is like, we can back you then. And we can be like, this is what's happening, and they've notified us, and we understand what's going on from here on out. I don't understand the communication constantly struck out with us.
And I think like us asking for the communication back isn't us asking for input. I totally get why you do not want the input of hundreds of teachers. But what we're asking is, so for example, if our administration at the high school is really good at this, but if a student on my caseload gets called into the office and is getting into trouble, they'll call me in to sit there. And so they'll make me aware that someone on my caseload is being disciplined. And that doesn't always happen. So if someone gets an office referral at recess, say, and then so the person who's doing the recess duty makes the referral, that student's homeroom teacher doesn't always know that they got the referral, but it would be the homeroom teacher who, you know, maybe is helping to implement a behavior support plan or something and needs to be aware of that. So that communication back isn't happening to everyone involved if it just goes to the person who made the referral.
Can I piggyback on that in our building too? It's hugely important for families. Right, so we have interaction out at bus pickup or, and we see those parents then we're handing their children over them and we sometimes don't have any knowledge of some behavior that went down earlier in the day because that wrap back communication hasn't happened and it's hugely important. The parents are like, I got a call from the office and we look silly that we don't know. We look stupid, like we're not in the know of that sort of thing, and we're all supposed to work together.
It's just unfortunate, it's a partnership we're looking for in the district. And
Yeah,
it's-
and I'm looking, I think that's what we're looking for too, is the partnership. The cell phone thing was what I didn't want to get into, because I went back and did some research on that, but yeah, that, I own that. So we'll go back when we caucus and take a look at E. To be able to review the communication. And C was really more about who needs to be communicated with, and I did circle that because we want to make sure that if people can't see it, then that changes how we would look to report back.
So when you guys talk about it, as Clemens has it in paper form, the PES uses Google Documents, that's back and forth, and that's the reason why we're not all on the same page with this student information system thing. So each building has different protocols for how we send that information to our administration. Thank you, appreciate that.
I just want to jump right in for a clarification that might be helpful back on A. I don't know if it's like that different here, there's some four things that have come up, but just reiterating back where we were coming from with our proposal, right? So we've dealt with this article a handful of times in recent years at the bargaining table, right? When we came up with this compromise language in A, the district was the side that proposed the last sentence. Finalized procedures are determined by the building principal because, as I recall, you wanted to retain that management right at the end to say like, yeah, we'll take input, but at the end of the day, it's the principal that determines it, and that's what's gonna happen going forward. We didn't propose to change any of that, number one, because we knew that you would want to be relinquishing that right anyway. But like there's a couple of things, and what we just talked about there is important, and I think it's important to go back to E, because there are these current examples that are driving this proposal. But the other part of this was, we looked at this and we're like, how can we help this language be better understood? Not necessarily substantively change all these areas. And so that's why we said, hey, we use policies and we use procedures. We want to bump up this section that's just on procedures. So we're using the same language so that we understand those parts. And ultimately for us in A, the changes that we proposed, we were really just wanting to see increase in communication and like input. So the school-wide review component. And
Absolutely.
it ultimately wouldn't concern our side if the procedures that are finalized, if the language was to stay the same, but the building principal were informed by you or Kelsey or somebody else at the district level to be able to do that. What's essential from our end is what the language currently provides is that we have input and that we have a review, and that whoever is helping to shape that is a part and hears that,
I
right? So
agree.
that's back to where it works for the building principal in, because when an input phase is happening and that principal is there, they can take that into consideration. They can say, no, I hear you, but it's not gonna work. Here's the finalized decision. And I think that what would be concerning is we don't want to take any steps back in this. So like it would not be helpful for us to be at a place where like, oh, well, we don't have the finalized procedures yet, and it's September. And we're, because we have this beginning of the year review, right? Like, and so I think the anxiety around that changes drives back to, we don't want to have any obstacles to completion. If the district, I mean, at the end of the day, you can tell your principals, like, your procedures need to include this or that, like, because that's your right to do that on your end. But we just want to make sure that communication is better, and that input is valued and heard, and that there is a procedure that's there provided at the beginning of the year, and we're not waiting on anything in that regard. So just, back to where we're at, because you wanted to change to administration, that was your proposal, the first time around, and if it's enhancing it in some way or it's important, it's just, we're just, I guess we get that, but at the same time, we don't want any, obstacles.
Right.
Right?
I hear that.
We want it to be, people get it, understand it, and be able to implement it, and then this idea of like, our proposal has this, annual review or work on it, and that yours doesn't, but like it's coming from, we don't believe that we're going to satisfy every need and challenge that we face on this front. So we need to be in constant communication about that.
No argument there. No argument there at all. And so we'll add that to our list. For 16, the language of Falmouth Academy remains the same. Under incentives, C, we took out, or proposing that we take out the 3-tiered setup for incentives, and simply saying any licensed employee with 2 or fewer total absences represented in Article 16A and 16B of this contract during the school year will be awarded $150. And then I think we took out, actually, the total is prorated based on, that's my bad. The total is prorated based on employee FTE at the end of the school year. We just wanted to simplify it and put that out there as a possibility to be able to say, instead of no leave taken versus up to including 1 day absent, that it just be a simple 2 or fewer total absences that are represented in A and B of this article will be awarded $150 period.
That's personal and sick leave?
Yeah, that's the way it's always read in there.
We're taking out the total is prorated thing.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yep, we're taking out the total is prorated, and we're taking out the, no leave taken versus up to and including 1 day, more than 1 day, up to 2 days, and just said, let's kind of keep it simple. And, run it forward in that way and see if that might also be workable. Right now, we're looking at a payout to people, maybe $2,000 total. To a dozen people. Roughly, and so there's not a lot, and so which is fine, because we want people to use the lead they've got. But there was conversation at the beginning too that said, let's not take entirely out the notion of incentive if we want to encourage people. And so the idea was to say, can we make it easier for the business office to, that's all. The accumulated sick leave benefits and the tier 1, tier 2, that's the same as it's been. And then if we look all the way over to H in the partial day leave, it had been in there for 1/2 a day. And we went down to a class period and then said there's not equity in that, so we said for up to an hour. The employee may take such leave without deduction in their available leave hours, so this is being able to cover for each other, and it was just a different proposal to be able to put forward. All right, 17. The A leave of absence has not changed from earlier in our conversations. The short-term unpaid leaves was really about, we had put in there before about the insurance, and you said we don't have any other idea. Let's keep it in our language, in the way that it's, or not even put anything else in there. And so we came back with just a slightly different proposal, that just to consider. When a licensed employee has exhausted all individually earned leave types, the employee may make a request for leave without pay to the superintendent. The determination of the leave without pay request will be communicated to the employee in writing. The licensed employee may or may not be required to pay for a substitute in these situations. So no substitute pay required in the issue of illness, extended bereavement, or family illness. So if I've run out of my leave and I have to take unpaid leave because I've got family illness, I've got extended bereavement, or I've got illness, I won't be required to pay for a substitute. If there is a situation where a substitute is needed with no reasonable alternative to the district, except that would unreasonably or negatively affect the district's operations, then someone taking unpaid leave would be responsible for the payment for their substitute on that day or part of the day. Again, just put out there as a just another consideration, that's all. And then D, the donated leave is the MOU. All right, 18 insurance. And we talked long and hard about this because we looked at, we can make changes to the pool or we could make changes to opt-out. And both of them have credence in different ways. So know that what we have proposed in here takes a look at the insurance pool, but it doesn't look at changes in the opt-out because we can't do them both. So our look was to again agree that the $1,300 and $1,400 caps would apply. We are agreeing to your $80,000 in the insurance pool. And then if you look to item J, we are staying with, because of that, the $350 per month for opt-out instead of the move to $375. And then in L, the long-term disability, where it says up to the level of the insurance cap, we took that out because it's a it's a nightmare. So that's our 18. In 19 compensation. We have gone with, stayed with a 3.5% in a first year and a 4% in the second year. In number 4, the request had been the last time you met that the experience stipend should be 2.5%. We are coming back with a proposal of 2%. When we calculate that, let me finish this and then, well, stop there. When we calculate this out, the people who get the higher benefit, because you've got a higher salary to begin with the experience stipend, actually means that the people on the higher end of the salary schedule are the ones that see more benefit. The ones on the lower end of the salary schedule don't see the same because they're starting with a lower benefit. And so if you want to look at something that supports our newer teachers, it's just letting you know that that's kind of the calculations we put together and put out there. But we wanted to propose going from what was the 1.5% to 2%. The other items on those other pages are things that we have had in there before. For consideration in terms of advancement on a salary schedule. Jennifer did put together also for number 7, the co-curricular schedule. The appendix to be able to take a look at.
At the 6%.
Yeah, the 6%, but it was really clear in here. District level positions shall remain the same, and so I didn't bring it with me, I didn't have a chance to look at it, but the idea of wanting to do that was to make sure that we were in agreement about district level positions. Versus athletics and activities, and which ones where it applies and which ones it doesn't. So that's our reason for wanting to go to that level of detail there. And just making sure we have it right. Else. Oh, when we get to the national board certification. We said with administrative approval and support, because we know the administrators have to be supportive. We said up to 10 licensed staff who obtain and retain national board certification will have the cost paid for. We talked about, did we want to pull it out and see if there would be agreement to an MOU to try it? But we thought if we can, maybe set a limit, and not that we believe, we may not even have 10. We don't know that, but the other thing we wanted to do was to be able to make sure within that we take a look at spreading it across schools and levels. So it's not like all 10 slots go to the primary school or the elementary school or the high school or the middle school, that we're really taking a look at where do they go. Now, that doesn't mean that if we get 3 people at the high school and nobody at Clemens, that we're gonna say, sorry, high school, you can't have any more. We're just trying to manage what that looks like in terms of what people do. So that was that piece of it. I think those are the big things that are new in compensation.
I wanted to just point something out on the 7 of the appendix. The current language calls for the schedule to be incorporated into the agreement. So we put the notation here, we wanted to just make it clear that our proposal was in the athletics and activities subsection. It's possible to just, maybe it's what you were saying, to have just an amended appendix D, shows the athletics and activities increasing by 6%, everything else staying the same.
And that's what we wanted to do.
That
Make sure we got it right.
That language then wouldn't have to be changed in the future if the appendix just reflected those increases.
We just wanted to make sure that wherever it is, we're getting it right. And there's agreements in how we figured it out. So I'm happy to share that.
And then Did you go over 10? As I-
That's my question too. Are you agreeing to the green? What's this? What are you doing there? 10.
Oh, licensed staff who have graduated with a dual bachelor's degree from Oregon University System or equivalent upon hire. No, we've said that we will not, we don't want to include that in the yellow. In the green, that was the proposal to put forward in its place in terms of salary schedule placement. Thank you for asking.
Is this language in the green for number 9 or 10, sorry, is that different than what we currently have?
It is, it's proposed of what we put in there.
And so, can you offer some like explanation of why we don't want to recognize just those individuals in our district that have the dual degree that have been working there for a number of years?
Well, we looked at an MOU last year and I didn't agree to it last year. So we stopped to be able to make sure that we could put it forward in a bargaining process. What I want to do is to take a look at each of those individuals. I don't want to make a determination, about. I want to look at everybody.
But last year, I don't have anybody, I had their, transcripts and everything, and you said, you don't need to look at it, the board said that you don't need to look at it, but now you're wanting to look at it.
Because the board said, what?
But you said the board said you have to address that, or look at it with that at the time.
Yeah, we chose not to address the MOU because it took itself more into, dual degree as a longer term history.
No, we were just, at the time, just looking at these individuals, and I had transcripts from all those individuals, I was like, let's look at them, let's just address these individuals. And I was trying to get it, just for those individuals.
And there was a bigger piece to MOU. My understanding was when it came forward that it had dual degree also into the future. Because dual degree was the new master's.
Now, we were just talking about those individuals.
And that did get brought up at the last time we were here. So
Okay.
I
So we can have conversation when we focus on that.
I had something personal from the out of state that I didn't get to say. So that's on my.
All right, thank you.
Around that, so. You got all the rest of them. That's
All right.
So sorry about that.
Article 20. What I did was I just narrowed it down. I didn't give you all the pages because there was a lot of thoughts and changes and things like that. So I put new staff orientation instead of new teacher orientation because it really is about all staff, even though licensed are a part of it. So, but your language was the district shall ensure that all newly hired licensed employees receive a comprehensive onboarding process that includes a new staff orientation and handbook. Handbook will be updated each year with input from the association. We had question, which is why we crossed it out, and said that is jointly created and instituted in collaboration with the association. We want input and we want it to be able to be consistent, and have that level of input, but it was, what does it mean that it's jointly created and instituted?
So what we were wanting to make clear there is that we would be happy to partner in developing what that would look like, that we would be happy to partner in presenting. We have association members who would be glad to be part of that day and help in the planning and things like that. Just to make sure that our members are getting the information that they need to start the school year ready to go.
Okay. So we'll look back at that again. It was kind of like jointly created and instituted. It's just like, what's the language that fits? Because yeah, we want the input.
Yeah, I think that the proposal jointly created from us was a little bit more than input from the association. The last year, and kind of finalized them. When we were imagining instituting it, we were imagining the presentation of that at the orientation. So it's not. That, I guess it was that word could be a little bit problematic there. That, what we were, what Shelley said is hitting the main interest there, just in terms of that proposal. But we wanted to help make it, and so that we could know that it's done and then be a part of that.
Yep. Okay, it was just one of those that was,
Presented in collaboration with probably a bit of better, verb there from our end, for what we were doing.
okay, well, we'll take a look back at that. New hires and any collaborating association members will be paid for all hours of attendance at their per diem rate for the new staff orientation, although this is specific to license, we know that we recognize that it's a full staff orientation. We took into it, pardon me, I'm sneeze. Thank you. We heard the new staff orientation shall minimally include information on the following, and instead of distribution of keys, we put facility access. Because it's keys, it's key cards, it's all those kinds of things. Facility alarm system instructions, distribution of technology equipment and accounts. Staff evaluation procedures and identification of formal evaluator or observing personnel. Because those are gonna be real different, those are gonna be different. Everybody is assigned someone who is their formal evaluator, but those who can observe and contribute to that evaluation could be more than that one individual. So we just want to be clear about that. Then I took policy handbook and the collective bargaining agreement. So the district shall ensure that district policies are updated and available online for download at the district website. Any employee may print a copy of the policies on a district printer. We're looking at, can somebody print a policy handbook? Because right now those policy prints are just an individual policy. And we used to have policy handbooks in all the schools. But we haven't done that for a long time. And so, the question is, how do we do that without being cumbersome for a book for everybody? So, we're open to thought there. And then the collective bargaining agreement, new hires will receive the most up-to-date copy of a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, as part of their electronic new hire checklist, or may print directly from the district website. So we have the bargaining agreements on the website. Megan and Jennifer also talked about, in the, which one? The talent ed, that the new hire checklist, that is a piece of what people get within that, is an electronic version of the most recent collective bargaining. So we were just trying to shift that around and put it in the language of what we think we do without overkill. All right, 28. And really the place that seems to be stuck is the interview committee for vacancies. And we want to hear and want licensed staff representation on our interview committees to be able to give input. That's not a question at all about wanting to be able to have that. When we start looking at all people from a related grade or subject level will participate or be invited to participate in an interview committee. At times is untenable in terms of people's availability and things like that. We want that. Want to be able to open the doors. The other thing is the reminder that in the management rights, the hiring of employees and the rights or direct working forces including a right to hire, promote, suspend, are all management rights. We could easily say, interview committee should come out of this, we don't want it anywhere in there because it's a management right, neener. Don't want to do that because we want, and here, the involvement of people in an interview process. So when it's, the willingness to put that in there says interview committee shall be formed for the purposes of filling vacancies as part of the hiring process. Licensed staff representation shall be invited to volunteer to participate as a member of the interview committee. Interview committee shall be trained and shall provide a recommendation for hire to school and district administration. Sometimes if we have a late hire, it's really hard to grab people, but we want to do that. Dependent upon the position, if we open a pool for an elementary teacher, what grade level teachers do we pull when we're looking at a pool? I mean, so it's really trying to say, we want that, and we want the inclusion, and we want the invitation. It just can't be always an everybody. So that was our thought with this.
So I think we talked at our last meeting, our explanation of the proposal was that it would be great to have, like, if you're hiring a fourth grade teacher, an email goes to the fourth grade team. We would like to invite one of your team to attend, participate in these interviews, you know. English, we'd like to invite one of the English department to participate. We had asked that volunteer not be put in there because there are times when we do late hires in the summer where we think it would be great if a member attended that they get paid. We thought it would give the building principal some leeway as like, hey, you're not gonna get paid, but if one of you wants to volunteer, that's great. Hey, it's August, we just found out that someone decided to retire. We'll pay if you'll come in and be a part of these. So we have requested that volunteer be taken out of there just to give a little more
Not to lock these into.
frustration.
It sure
Or,
helps when
no,
one of those
it's-
individuals on the team is actually understands the curriculum or
No doubt.
requirements.
No doubt.
And so we understand it's that whole thing of like trying to get into partner with the district.
Mhm.
And this is a clear message that we're asking the district to utilize our knowledge, our information, our boots on the ground, like in any separate way, whether it's
No.
curriculum, safety, classroom management. We are the ones dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, and so we're asking the district to include us in those decision making. This is another one of those.
That's also why we put shall be invited but not required, because we recognize that. Yeah. And if it's a pool, could you invite one teacher from each grade level? Then we'd love to have one teacher from each grade level here, or that would be our ideal situation. So now.
Yeah, see that, I mean, that's,
usually.
and that's where we get is, yeah, how do we do that? We've got somebody that's, language, arts and social studies. We want to make sure we get the bases covered. If we've got somebody that's doing language, arts and social studies, it's going to have a heavy emphasis possibly on, or excuse me, a math teacher, I'll say, that's doing, year-long algebra as one of their classes. And we know that in many instances, those kids who are taking a year-long pre-tri algebra class need that little bit of extra support. So we may say Shelley's a good one to be able to be in there. Or possibly some of those students from her caseload that should be a part of that. To be able to help with the interviews to make sure that there's, breakdown fits for students who need that kind of thing. Absolutely. Not discouraging involvement at all. All right, 31. You said the district will maintain a district-wide safety protocol, licensed staff shall receive annual written notification. We're good there. The district-wide safety protocol will include, threat assessment protocol, and we put communication protocol instead of communication process for informing licensed staff of incidents involving school and public safety. because it's bigger than just that. But that was why we put communication protocol. If a licensed employee believes that there's an immediate threat to student and or staff safety, the licensed employee may request immediate assistance. We didn't think that it needed, including those from a student or community member. It could be anybody. Let's see, the behavior information we took out a long time ago on the surveillance video stays the same. Facility security access, all facilities in the district will have lockable exterior doors. Licensed staff will be issued working keys to any doors they need access to in the course of their knowledge. So, anything in the red that you had proposed that's not crossed out, we said, okay. We're good there. And 32 continues to be the struggle. We would like to propose that this article not go forward. And a part of that is the notion of management rights, even though we took out the 99%, we're still looking at about $1 million cost to implement. And so if we move forward in that way, what are we not gonna do to be able to make sure we get this? We've already implemented an upgrade in the key cards. We've got staff Chromebooks, we've got new lines, we've got student Chromebooks. So those things are already happening and in the mix. The other part of that is if we are compromised in any way and have to shut down, we're not gonna cancel school. We're not gonna close for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is to be able to do that. We'll look at that and have the conversations and input to be able to say, what do we need to do? But especially if we're closed for 2 or 3 days, or excuse me, if we're down for 2 or 3 days, let alone an hour. What are some of those things that we can continue to do? And we realize that we live in a technology-driven society. But we also have students in businesses, and most recently of the breaches to, what was it, Google and who else recently? That were attacked with some breaches even in the course of the last week. How do we deal with those downtimes and allow people to deal with downtimes? Because there's a lot of businesses that don't want to shut down their productivity just because the computers don't work. That doesn't mean we need a lesson plan for every day. But you know, it's kind of what happens to the potential use of the old Avid Socratic seminar that we've done, and you might be able to pull out of your back pocket. What are some of those things? We believe technology is an incredible need, and that's the direction we're going, which is why we've done so much with appropriate use of AI, some of those different kinds of things to be able to address and deal with head on. And that's the reason that we talked about if we keep anything in the technology needs, when the district is considering a new technology with a possibility for increased workload, I think you may have started this. Requirement that impacts all staff, the district will notify the association of possible change. The association will be provided the opportunity to provide, just too many times using the word provide, input on considerations, including procedures and timelines for implementation as well as needed training. Because that's gonna be important, but the specifics, we're saying no.
It's tough because, I think that I know not only what I was reporting on it, I know building principals were reporting on it, technology was reporting on it. The fact that we struggled so bad in the last couple of years with technology.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to not really get acknowledged. And this idea that we all know we have a rock star staff of technology department. But I don't know if they always have the available funds that they need in a timely manner to move forward in the appropriate way that they need to. And yes, we need to be prepared to not have, internet. But there's a lot of times where part of our district has internet, the other part doesn't. Or something goes down and we're in a critical stage. Often, quite often, staff is using their own hotspots to keep things moving at a critical time. It's one thing if it's like something goes down and we have to adapt, and that's our job. We 100% recognize that that's our job to adapt into those circumstances when there's no technology, and we do it. We do it every single time. But there's some things that we lose valuable time in our classroom. And it's not just like a blip every once in a while. It's a blip quite often that we are doing this and using our own technology to make those situations meet our students, and sometimes our students are even having to pull out their own technology to give a hotspot or do something or bring their own technology because it just is a gap there. And there just seems to be this have and have nots too, and throughout the district. And so we were hoping this would be something that not only, bargaining, but the board, this allocation of making sure that there's funds there to keep us sustained is really important.
And no doubt. So then my question back would be, where do we do what we want to do across the board in bargaining and everything else and get $1 million to the technology department?
So I think that also an important point is that anytime we put something forward, it's because needs have consistently not been met. And so there's been a lot of frustration. We've gone to a lot of Google and we're going to Google, but the new curriculum for the elementary school uses PowerPoint.
And we're working on that, yeah.
And the new staff Chromebooks cannot play a DVD player. So our current setup, you could plug in like a portable DVD player or like a USB DVD player, and they could play like a science movie or something. Our new Chromebooks will not.
Yes, they will. We're talking about that, and we're talking about not everybody's gonna get, there's mostly, a lot of laptops, not even just Chrome, don't have DVD players anymore.
Correct.
They just don't. Right. And so what we're talking about is, do we give them to the people that need them and use them a lot? Or do we put a certain amount, we just talked about this today, do we put a certain amount in schools? Because what I don't wanna do is buy a bunch of DVD players, I'd be facetious here, for somebody that only uses it twice. But we know we've got people that will use it a whole lot more to be able to do those things, so do we center some in schools, and or do we give some to individuals? But that was a conversation we had today. DVDs are an area of import. What do we need to do to be able to address that?
Just to clarify, one of the two math programs we piloted had basically saying if you were in the slide decks, it was a PowerPoint. It was like if you were to switch over to Google Docs, it was actually arduous. That wasn't the program that there was a lot of
I think
other.
it's something like that.
No, I'm talking the elementary school. They have just that narrative of that, like if we were to adopt a program that was gonna be with like PowerPoint, that I want a conversation about, like, would we also then have to fund Microsoft 360 to go with it?
Right.
That's not just the program we're looking at is not that, it has a different slide deck, so just that, but I think to the point of collaboration, I think of even my short time in this district where, SEL, everyday speech, or the Great Body Shop with that, or a lot of these, everybody has components now online. So one of the things to think about this language is, how can I work with my team to say, what do you really need? Like, no, we got this. We need time on Friday to collaborate. Please don't just keep putting us in front of these software companies training us, but sometimes we need it. So one of the things around like in the CBA is, how do we keep that agility to kind of say, when do we need it, when do we not, for some components? That's just one thing that just thinking about like how and when we, because that ultimately the time for teachers credit on Friday is so precious and there's so hard work to get that. I sometimes just want to really be judicious about that time
And I think I could do better, obviously, with our teams figuring out what do we really need and what do we not need, and so that's just a piece around like not boxing in the language, saying every time we have something that has a technology component, we have to then also do a training when that's not what the voices of the teachers are saying, we specifically need that. So just a perspective.
And I can just speak also, I'm trying not to get too far afield, but I will say, one of the things that's been incredibly beneficial is me sitting here is the opportunity to see where the board can support these needs. And I've been taking notes on these recurring themes and trying to identify, and I can't speak for the board, I can speak for myself, the board member, trying to identify the places that we need to keep in the forefront of our decision making at every code and every policy committee and every budget committee, and where can we support what we're hearing. And that's why I like that I sat on this bargaining committee, it's my second time, and on the other bargaining committee for our classified staff, because it really does help me make those decisions when they come to the table or when we're at policy committee. And I can only pledge for myself, I will continue doing that as a board member, because it's the only way that we can give Susan and Jennifer what they need to be able to support you, which is all any of us want to do, right? We're not like, or how can we both do it with this much resource wise? And I will say the board has in the last, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 budget cycles, increased the amount of money we're putting into that technology fund, so we can make those improvements. We underpin the importance of that. And if that's the right word, sorry, it's a little late in my brain day, to make sure that we are increasing the money that can go in there so that our amazing technology team, who I know you all adore, can fix some of these things. And I appreciate the opportunity to hear these comments and this feedback so that we can be creative in our problem solving as a board as well when we can. So, thank you. I appreciate for giving us that opportunity also. No
Do you
problem.
have any bike sense? Left over?
Yeah. But some of the.
That's funny that,
Only 8, I told her so much. 31, 31, or 32. I don't see any picture of that too there, but that doesn't mean same things. We might have to print one more copy of 32. Oh, it's just like. Yeah. Here it is. Right there. You might be.
Thank you, hey, there we go.
When?
Walk.
Yeah, it's not, we made. We caucus, so we had. Rather than any printing problems or anything, we could write on this.
Yeah.
Give them a response, so. That's some things. I have access to the office, too, if there's something about it, I'll be just looking at.
I mean, I don't have access.
Sorry, we'd like to come, this is, that's,
Yep,
okay.
yep, yep.
And,
You have time?
And we have some things to consider too.
do they may have time constraints if they.
I do not.
After return a dramatic drill donated by Normal Rental, if I see them,
There you go.
but I could also leave there. In these truck channels.
You can say one.
Yeah. Just take it as long.
He knows people in front of us.
Yeah.
He's not in here right now. So she's falling asleep or whatever. Anything else, Yarki?
Yeah.
We will, give an update before we get that for you. Okay. Okay, because it needs, it gives us some time to go.
Yep.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bathroom, but. I guess where you, is in.
One chairs.
Crystal's room.
What?
I said, you guys are using Crystal, I just wanna make sure you didn't have a conference room, I remember.
Still haven't even unpacked my, back, I usually do school boards, there's. And packed my suitcase, as soon as I got here, it's really. I know, otherwise my suitcase would probably still be packed on my bed.
But Rhiannon's leaving.
Yeah. Water, thank you.
Would you be willing to take?
Oh, yeah, that's not.
Oh, you guys, are you ready to start?
Go for it.
Okay, so, you presented a lot of information that we were trying to go through, and there just wasn't a lot of time to go
Yeah,
through.
sorry about that.
That's okay. And that's one other thing we were talking about, is just like time frame of, looking at to address all of it. But, we felt like we had, we printed 16 and 18 out because we felt like we were pretty close, and so it is ready to the TA if there's an agreement on it. So with 16, we are agreeing with the former academy in there. We accept the language for incentives. In D, we were wanting to keep our language there for the sick leave benefits.
That's really one.
I think your proposal says the district participates. Our proposal was that shall participate for unused sick leave program.
And we figured that saying that we participate was pretty much the same. The word shall just kind of comes off as but we were just hoping we could get rid of that word. That's all.
Yeah, I think from our end with that, it's just that we want to make sure that that like the previous language required the districts to participate. And that's our only concern here, is that because it is theoretically possible that a district could not participate in that program. And so,
Yeah, and
we wanted, we're fine taking out the other stuff in there, we just want to make sure that it's not left any interpretation that the district would continue to be a part of that.
and I guess our assumption was that if the district participates and it's in the collective bargaining agreement, by golly, we better participate. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
And then the second article is Article 18 of insurance. And we accept your proposal for the 350. I think you're.
oh, you said 18?
Sorry.
It's on the back.
Oh, right.
We accept the 80, which was our proposal, and then the 350, which was your proposal. On the back, for the opt-out.
What about on 16, the partial day leave? You still have for less than 1/2 a day.
The partial day leave, we want to go with what the contract says currently. We really feel strongly that, our members will respect that, and it's one that we discussed time and time again, that in fact, a good chunk of our members never even use this. And the ones that do should be on a limited fraction of incident, and I know that we've explained that to members before. And if there's anybody that is violating that, that should be an administrator that is having those conversations with that member.
And we've had conversations with our administrative group about, there are times that this happens and we don't know that it's happening. And so we just need to step up the knowledge of, yeah.
Communicated to admin when this is.
And we need to let people know.
Requires your approval anyway.
But yeah, but it's, sometimes, sometimes if somebody's covering for another person's class, we don't know.
Yeah, got it.
And so we just have to make sure that we're clear about what the
And
expectation
we
is.
can explain that to our members again, when we go through this and highlight that area, that this is an area that the district is working with us on and partnering with us on, and it's something that we value it, and so if we communicate that, then, and if there's any time that you feel like it's not going well, please, have that conversation with us again, with our, executive team.
This is also an example of the time, I think it doesn't happen all that often, but essentially like, you're working in collaboration on it. But the district can send out a letter, essentially an email or letter of expectation to all employees. And it says, this is to remind you, that under the collective bargaining agreement and partial day leave, that arrangements must require approval from the building administrator and their designee. So if you are seeking to access this, you need to do that. And like, we can help reinforce that and say, well, you might have had the past like 5 years or whatever, just been covering and not telling anybody. You need to do that. Like, I mean, that's a way to reestablish the, the status quo, I guess, or like expectations. But just, it's not like telling anybody that they're being disciplined, but it's telling everybody, hey, this is the standard.
This year was kind of Friday.
Yeah, but I think we can work on that. I'm just kind of pulling.
I also think like. If it's an ongoing problem, I think if admin in their monthly meetings with their building reps. And bring that up and say, hey, we're seeing a problem with this in our building,
Yeah.
building reps can talk to staff about that.
I think it's just continual collaboration on language, this is one of those points where we're willing to concede that.
Yep.
But as we, so how to work through it, right?
Yep. So I was doing my look around the room.
And we do, like, I mean, I know this year because of one of my kids had an illness that took a long time to diagnose, that I did use this. And so I don't want to use it and I don't want people to abuse it. So we definitely want to make sure that our members are doing what is expected.
It's been quite a few years since a lot of the, us that have fought for like that embedded professional alongside and how precious that is. So, and I feel like it's really respected amongst my team here, so communication, but it's, while I think we have really good trust with Philomath, community, it's also like, just something that, just that Friday time that we fought hard for that. So we really need to make sure that time, that's on us as administration to prepare, good things for that to happen, and we'll be there. That would be the saddest thing for our community going, hey, don't feel like you're really using this Friday for the
Right.
time for.
Yeah.
We all agree.
Yeah.
That we can share, that's important.
Yeah, I did that kind of head nods around the room, and so it appears that we've got consensus on both of those.
Right.
So,
Awesome.
Like that.
Now, to be honest, we were willing to stay here late to keep going. Yeah, I had about 13 was, and that.
yeah,
Fine frame.
we've kind of gone back and forth on, thank you for this, a little bit. There's a couple of things that, we started to do a little bit of wordsmithing in, Article 13, especially on C and E. That we didn't get entirely through, but we were getting close. Excuse me. I know. Same thing with 20, it was just some language. 28 vacancies and transfers. So like, here. We went back and forth about interview committees shall be formed for the purposes of filling vacancies as part of the hiring process. Licensed staff representation shall be invited to participate as a member of the interview committee. Interview committee shall be trained and shall provide a recommendation for hire to school and district administration. We took out the word volunteer, but that doesn't mean that people will get paid every time necessarily.
Right.
But we took that word out, recognizing and understanding, goodwill. And I think that was one of the big ones that we had talked about. So that's one that you can consider. Well, just making sure one of the ones that you already came back with. Oh, Article 19 in compensation. I want to go back to the file, which I didn't get to today, of the stuff we looked at last year. And get my head wrapped back into that language and those people. Yeah,
If you would like, me to send over anything from there.
we've got the file, I just didn't grab it.
Okay.
To be able to get my head wrapped back around. The thing that we wanted to make sure of in that, it says licensed staff who previously graduated with a dual bachelor's degree. If we were to proceed and make that determination, we would want to talk about, current employees versus previously graduated. So that it's a true reflection of if we chose to go ahead with it, it's really about our current employees as opposed to anybody that moves in with a.
Yes, and that was our intention, was just, we gonna take care of those people who are currently employed. OSU, I think, has seen the error of their ways, but for whatever reason, they are doing away with the dual degree program. So we would just like our current members to have their work reflected.
And we've had a lot of conversation about that continues to move, and that is about, be it fortunate or unfortunate, it sounds like maybe the Oregon University system did a real good job of telling students, this is the new master's degree. But they didn't do a good job of telling schools, this is the new master's degree. And so there's question about, is the work truly equitable to a master's degree? There's a question about, what about those folks that already do or have to take more credits? Just as a matter of their degree or their degree choices. That's the same as somebody that's in a dual degree. And so my head has not been in those notes for a while. I just need to go back and take.
Well, and the idea is that they would just be placed in the BA+3. Not the master's.
Master's level.
Just
One
Yeah.
column.
Yeah. So.
So just let me get my head
If
back.
they chose
Yeah.
to go for a master's, then that's them choosing to go on for a master's. That's not what we're talking about.
So I think that those were kind of our biggest considerations for now. So then the question becomes what?
Yeah, yes.
Um,
And if you want to caucus again, like I said, we did set a time aside for this.
all right, no, I think I don't think that needs to.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks.
Sorry, I interrupted that one.
No, I was just saying, if you guys would like to caucus again, if you want a moment to look back and do that, then please let us know. It's up to you.
I mean, we put these other ones forward. The question is, you wanted to continue later. We've got a couple people that can't. And so then the question is, what,
It seems like we can almost TA 28.
Yeah, 28 was just a simple thing.
We took out volunteers, so that was.
Yeah.
Not that I feel more here than I'm so sorry about.
they have to agree to,
The language,
yeah.
they said it can be. Prior to us caucusing, you guys were not advocating that all are required or invited, or do you still?
This is still different than what we proposed.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I figured you'd want to look at it.
we would just like invite it. Like we
He's asking about the word all.
All,
Striking the word all.
so just clarification.
Yeah.
The agreement to take out volunteer, just the other part. You're proposing representation, you're proposing all invited.
I mean, I think that's something that we're gonna have to talk about. I think the question is, are we doing that now? Are we trying to schedule other dates to do that?
Yeah,
But
and that's kind of the question of where can we get in a half an hour, if we chose to do that, if people can stay, versus what do we want to do next? Do we want to set another sooner rather than later sec? It's kind of like, I'm real open.
Part 29 was the one I was thinking about, that was, that was our review. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was already team,
Yes, correct.
that I didn't realize was already team.
Okay, well, it was just on your notes, so I wanted to.
Yeah, I just, yeah.
Did you? Yeah, I think wanted to.
Yeah, we have some limited time in July, and some of our members can't be there, but it is an option if we'd like to push forward, so it would have to be like.
We would be in the same kind of a position where there'd be people that would be missing.
What day are we talking?
It would be looking at the Wednesday or Thursday,
I can't remember.
yeah. Again, yeah, people that.
Second or third, you're out. Or,
Oh, excited on TV, but yeah.
sorry,
It's been-
Are you going on Love Island?
I know.
You're very quiet.
So,
I can't get seconds on it.
I'm. So we would have four,
Third.
if we met on the second, we would have 5 out of 6 of
you're
them.
not.
Oh, the third.
Okay, second.
Second.
Are you down? Okay, sounds like the second has a
Morning
possibility.
was better for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't come at this morning, so.
I also can't come.
Yeah.
If it's morning.
Okay.
So maybe we should push to August.
Yeah.
Just
Never
just
mind.
be like. The strange or what is it? I can't think. To be the person causing problems, there we go. Mornings and early afternoons are very hard for me. I have a job
Yeah.
that's still going on right now, so I don't,
They're so annoying.
know. I really like it, they pay me, but
Worth it.
sometimes it's for them.
If we moved it to August, we'd have some time then, the 4th, 5th, or 6th. That first week, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
We wouldn't have 4, 5, that's 6.
And does that work? Right, okay, so the 6th.
Fine.
I'm available anytime after, well, 5 would be ideal, but anytime.
Earlier would be better for me.
Do we want to go with the same 2:30?
You said 3:30.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
available after 3:30.
Okay,
If that works.
August 6th, 3:30,
Or honestly, I'm available.
and I'll find location.
11.
You wanna get another one out there?
Yeah. The next time, we're looking at is, the 12th. In the evening though. Yeah.
What time?
It, have to be
At 3:30 or so, 4 o'clock.
Four?
Or 2.
Yeah. Okay, well, go.
We said 4?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Then I think we have potential for the 21st. Uh, 21st if needed. I'm trying to be positive.
Which raises the piece of information. We put back a proposal of. We did the insurance cap, but we couldn't really do the opt-out and, then if we're looking at the compensation side of it and. Kind of the 2%, 1.5%, 2.5%, and what that means for different groups. If there are, visions or ideas that say, we're gonna spend some time probably in July thinking about, what might a consideration be to shake something up if we, something outside the box, if you will. And so if there were ideas, that would be helpful and beneficial. Oh, 21st.
I wonder how it all signed up for that.
Yeah.
Better just
have
think
it
about
out,
it,
yeah.
so then we think about school.
Mostly from on that calendar, I feel like.
What were you thinking about time?
And on that day, I'm available anytime after that winter. So, whatever you guys have first.
Okay, 1, 2, 4, 4 o'clock.
Okay. And I appreciate everyone's flexibility. I feel bad when it's just me asking for.
No, they're very fine. They all have a schedule
Stuff. Thank you very much.
After school, then we're served as artisan residents for our school, so as you're being drive by the fish that have been hung up on the fence, so. There's lots of talented people. And that, if you see the zip tie still gotta get cut out, and they were, that was holding him till.
Yeah, this is Rutledge and then this Buchanan has got to be, isn't there Elmer then?
Right.
I'll drive around.
Despite wind and rain and.
Right, because we're in Oregon.
Great. Oh, fantastic.
And take dogs or whatever those.
Yeah.
No, they asked me that.
There were old ones that we passed.